Welcome back to Ansible training. Last time we were trying out with this folder Ansible, and inside the Ansible folder we created important two files. One file is having the Ansible configuration file. This is the Ansible configuration file which is pointing to the inventory file, and then we have this as the content of inventory file. And as a resultant of this, if I execute the command, if I say Ansible all, that means I'm trying to do this activity with all the servers in the inventory file. If I say Ansible all -yum ping, I'm neither specifying any inventory like I did before in the previous videos, like -I, I'm not specifying because my configuration file automatically will be browsed, and that is pointing to this inventory file which has the inventory of the list of all the servers, and the servers are grouped under different groups, and these servers are associated with an IP address, and these servers are associated with a user ID, and the password is not specified because it uses the private public key pair. While the private key is with me, this private public key pair is available here, ls-a, I'm sorry, wait, yeah, slash dot ssh, that is from the home folder. You can see here under the dot ssh folder, I have this private and the public key. This public key is pushed to all the server. So because keeping the private key with us, so because of that reason, if I do Ansible all -yum ping, if my connectivity with all the servers is well, then it should be able to push the ping module. You can see here it is pushing it to the Ubuntu client 4. It is pushing it to the local machine, ANS machine. It is pushing it to CentOS clients, two CentOS clients. So it is pushing to all of them except yeah, even to the Ubuntu client 3. So it is pushing to all the clients. At the same time, if you are having any other folder, remember this works only for the current folder where ansible.configuration file is defined, and that is pointing to the inventory file. Okay, inventory file can be anywhere. It depends on what path we have specified here. Incidentally, we specified both of them in the same folder. However, there is another folder here. Let me just get into that folder. As I told you before, if you get into this folder and try to execute the same command, it throws this warning saying that the host list is empty. It doesn't have anything. At the same time, if you go to the home folder, this is the home folder where again ansible.configuration file is not defined. And if you try to execute this, you will again get the same warning saying that the host list is empty. What exactly is this host list that this is now, the warning is now referring to? This is actually referring to the global configuration file under /etc/ansible. You'll find here this is the global configuration file and the global inventory file. Let's just have a quick look into that. vi/etc ansible.cfg. If you go into this here, you can see there is something in here, some content is here, but all the lines are commented. There is no definition for where the inventory file is located. And of course, there is also a global inventory file for you, etc ansible host. There is a global inventory file for you, which is more like a reference file. Some dummy inventory sources or dummy inventory servers are specified. You may specify the inventory either using a fully qualified domain name, FQDN, fully qualified domain name, or you can specify them with the IP address. This is how you can define them under the groups. So everything is defined here, but it has nothing to do with. You can see even it is listed under specific like Debian servers, OpenSUSE servers, can be specified, but this is only for reference purpose because all the lines here are commented. So can I use this? How best I can use this? So what I'll do is I'll just quickly go back here, cd ancilla cat ansible.cfg, and whatever content that I'm having here, this content, I just copied it and I'll just go here, etc ansible.cfg. Okay. So here where there is nothing, all the lines are commented here. I'll just open this, but remember one thing, one need to use sudo before editing that. Otherwise it will say it is a read-only file, etc ansible, sorry, ansible.cfg. Specify the sudo password. After specifying the sudo password, you can come here, you can open the line, and here you can paste that same content. Okay. It specifies pointing to the same /home/devops/ansible host. But of course, our inventory file, whatever we have referred to, that was here in this particular path. So let me edit this path. So that it includes that etc ansible host. Okay. And then I'll come back here, cat host. I'll copy this entire inventory file which I had created here. I'll copy this. Okay. And then I'll come back here, sudo vi/etc ansible host. I'll come to this inventory file where there is nothing because all the lines are commented here. I'll just open somewhere here. I'll just paste my contents here. Okay, so what I did was most important. I just configured both this ansible.cfg, which is under etc ansible. Here I had specified the inventory pointing to etc ansible host, and here I do have the inventory file. Okay, uncommented lines, I have specified it here. Now after I made change to this /etc ansible, this ansible.configuration file and the inventory file, after I made the change to it, observe I am currently under the home folder where I do not have any Ansible configuration file or no inventory file. But still, if I try to execute this command, observe that it is working. How does it work? Not just that, if you go here into not just the Ancilla folder, instead of that, if I go here into the test folder, here again, if I try to execute that command, it works. It is now working everywhere. It is all because of this global inventory file, VI global configuration file and the global inventory file. Here in the global configuration file, I had configured to specify where the inventory is available. Let me just make a small change to that inventory file. I'll go back to this inventory file. Note their names. I'll call this as, instead of ANSI machine, a detailed name, I'll simply call it as ANSI, a shortened name. And instead of calling this as COS client 1, I'll simply call it as COS 1, COS 2. I'll show you with this which one is actually working, UB3 and UB4. I'm removing the name client or machine from all those names. Okay. After making this small change here, I'll come back. I think I forgot to do 1 minute. I forgot to specify here sudo, so it doesn't allow me to make the changes. So let me once again has to repeat all those things. Let me just make a quick changes to this. I'll make this as COS1 and this as COS2 and this as UB3 and UB4. Okay, this time I should be able to save it. Okay, now if I do it, I'll repeat this. You can see there were some errors. I will check to that later. Why there was error with respect to this ANSI. But of course, what you can see here is it is trying to say push the ping module into UB3, COS1, COS2, these particular clients. That means this is referring to the global configuration file. Whereas instead of this, if you go here into this Ansible folder, and here if you try to execute the same thing, you will see here it is referring to UB client 4, COS client 2. It is referring to ANSI machine instead of ANSI. Okay. And if I go to the home folder where I don't have any configuration file, and if I try to execute the same command, that means accepting that particular folder where ansible.configuration file is defined. Other than that, anywhere else if I try to execute, it is considering the content of etc ansible host, that is the global inventory file. It is referring to this global inventory file. Okay, elsewhere. But here in this particular folder where there is a defined configuration file cat ansible.cfg pointing to its own inventory file cat host. Okay, here this will going to override the global configuration file and it will going to use the local configuration file. The difference is the local configuration file is used to configure with respect to the inventories whose corresponding activities are defined in this folder. Later you will going to see these activities are nothing else but the playbooks or the roles. If those things are all defined and utilized under this folder, that means basically if I execute Ansible specific commands from this folder, then it will going to use a locally defined ansible.configuration file and the inventory file. Elsewhere in any other folder, whether it is a subsequent folder or the parent folder where there is no defined configuration file, automatically it will going to use the global configuration file defined under etc Ansible. Okay. Before I conclude this particular video, let me show you the extent of what all things can be specified in the configuration file that is defined here. vi slash etc ansible ansible.cfg. If you go here, here they have specified a URL. You can catch this URL. Okay. And let me just go to one of my browser. Okay. Let me just paste it in my browser. And here you can see whatever is defined. So what all things that are possible in that configuration file. So these are all the things. What we have used is only one inventory, but there are many more things that can be specified, and you can use that link specifically here from this link. And also they have specified a command here. That again is another interesting command. Let me catch this command and let me just go out of this. Okay, I am currently in the inventory file. Sorry, I am currently under the test folder, which is a subsequent folder where there is nothing. But if you use that command here, okay, and if you use, you can see it creates a default configuration file. It creates one with the defaults, but all of them are disabled. If I open this configuration file, You will find all of them commented, but you will find all the details, whatever is possible to be specified under a configuration file. Everything is specified here. As we go ahead in the following videos, we'll come across with a few of these content. Okay. And if you want to get them enabled, you just have to remove this disabled command, disable flag. And if you just use it, then you will going to see a configuration file being created with all the flags enabled, but you need to be careful because it depends upon what all things you will going to use and what you don't use. Without knowing what exactly those files will define, those flags will define, you might land up in trouble while configuring with the Ansible configuration file. Okay, thank you. We'll now go ahead working more with the other modules, playbooks and roles.